Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Strike, Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Ultimate podcast. I'm Jeff,
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
and we are recapping another huge Minnesota Ultimate weekend. The Strike and Wind Chill both played at Seafoam Stadium yesterday. I guess by the time this podcast comes out, it's been a couple days now, but they did their first ever doubleheader, and it was awesome. Before we get too much into it, we're obviously going to start like we normally do with some stall sevens. Who wants to start with the stall seven tonight?
I got a good one.
All right, hit us.
All right, Cam. Currently, who is the Minnesota Wind Chill assist leader?
Assist leader, Josh Clan.
That's right, yeah.
I was like, maybe Paletto. I could see it being Paletto. Or so, like some dude who played for like 10 years
Oh, sorry, I meant for the season.
for the season.
For the season.
I was Josh Clan still.
Yeah, it's still Josh.
Yeah, for the season, I would have said Josh Clan either way. Clan, if you're listening, get on the podcast sometime, man. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. We'll start them off strong. I mean, yeah, you could have said Clayton and like you would have. That was a very safe answer.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, how many assists does he have this year already in 2 games?
7.
Okay, yeah.
Can you guess
He's
who
not
number
a-
2 and number 3 are?
Oh, I can.
Right?
I'm gonna guess Well, do you have to go in order? Quinn Snyder. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna put him at number three, and I think I'll put uh we'll put Colin Berry at number two.
I'm gonna say Marco Dragni. I think he's still up there.
For assists.
And oh, for assist, give me
Assists.
give me Cheetah. I don't know. I got nothing. Sorry.
Who's up there?
Quinn Snyder's 1. He does 5. There might be a couple tied for third, but what the AUDL site is showing is Will Brandt with 4. In one game, Will Brandt got
Seriously?
4 assists.
That's
So,
insane. Yeah, he
My
hasn't
guy
played. He
right
didn't play
there.
yesterday. That's pretty
yeah. So there might be a couple tied for 4, but it's showing
Yeah.
William Brandt.
sweet. Willie, he said William Brand.
It says William. So
That's hilarious. Will, if you're listening, man. All right, we're just goofballs tonight. We spent like 7 hours in the sun yesterday just baking and screaming from the top of our lungs. Um, okay, my stall seven, I'm gonna direct to Jay. Um, at one point in the game, during the strike game yesterday, they they made a big comeback, being down to eventually take the lead. During this point scoring run, they didn't give up a single break, and they scored how many consecutive points? You got a couple seconds left.
but we were talking about it yesterday. I'm pretty sure it's 6.
It is 6. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would say it's either 5 or 6. 'Cause I don't know if there was like a weird like one score that we got 5 in a row. But
Yeah, it was a pretty big run, and that basically solidified the lead there. I think it dug them out of the deficit, sent them to the lead, and since then they didn't give it up. So
no, yeah.
that was what made the game.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I have one more
Going to a stall seven. I have a conversation starter for like the strike game recap. So do another question.
This one's for Jeff. Just gotta
Okay.
give him a chance to get a question in. Jeff, we're talking about how the Wind Chill were ranked pretty low on the power rankings. What did Adam Ruffner have the Wind Chill ranked at prior to this week?
I'm pretty sure it was number 7.
It was number 7, yeah.
Nice. But was that like that's just like across the whole league though, like, right?
Yeah. And you only had one game, so
I was gonna say I remember like you at the game, you took pretty big offense to it. And like honestly, I think that's actually really doing us justice. Like given that we only had one game, given that some teams are already like 4-0, like the Empire, like but yeah, I think, and we're gonna get into this, like this is a good transition, but before we get too much into it, like the Wind Chill are good this year, and they proved it yesterday, they proved it a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that we'll talk more details, but I want to get into the strike game if that's all right. We start with the strike game.
Mhm.
Cool. Initial thoughts, I guess, is the way I'll kick this one off. Like they gave up 3 breaks in a row, and just got off to a pretty slow start, and it was kind of dismal. They actually had like the first quarter they were down, and I think they were down at half. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, what do you guys make of the game and their big comeback?
I think this is what I was gonna say a second ago. I think we've seen the Strikes succeed in like every way that you can succeed as a team this year. They've had games where from the first pull, they've been go in charge of controlling the game. They've had games where they've been doing that, the other team makes a comeback, and then they finish it off strong still and still win. And now they've had game where the first 3 points, you know how disheartening it is to get scored on 3 times in a row. Like, but then they pull through that. And so I think just like after yesterday, it just really solidified that like the strike team this year has the pieces to get through any game. Like it is the team you want to have assembled in order to get out of whatever situation. So
Yeah, it was sweet, and like I'm gonna say it like this really for me proves more the point that defense wins games because I what I kind of noticed is that like how do you get a break scored on you is that your offense is out, right? Like that's your offense giving up that break point. Once their defense was able to get out there, I think they really found their legs. It gave the offense a chance to kind of reset, recalibrate, and kind of figure out what their plan is. Like clearly something's going wrong. Let's get off the field. Let's get our defensive line out there. And defense then they scored six in a row, right? Like again, those are break points then. After you score six in a row, you're just scoring break point after break point after break point. And so I think like you said, Kane, it's not that they were just throwing hammers all game and doing the same old strike strategy, which is to huck and pray, but they were being very strategic on both sides of the disc. They were taking opportunities when they had them. They were forcing opportunities. And yeah, like defense this time got to shine. And not to discredit the offense, offense was still incredibly necessary and just as helpful. But I think defense is what won them this game.
right. I think sorry, Jay, I don't mean to like interrupt you, just gonna get this real
Oh, I'm
quick.
sure he's got some stuff to say.
Yes. I think the word that would be best to describe the strike is just like dynamic. Because like what you said, like this game, the defense really got to shine. And so it's really like adaptive and dynamic. And so Jay, before you say anything, defense wins games when defense needs to win games. Okay. Offense wins games, but like a defense, like a strong defense is how you're gonna win a game when you shouldn't win a game, if that makes sense.
So I'm gonna interject. We're like just cutting off Jay. We're not letting him get a word in today.
Get him
What
off the pod.
okay. Get him off. Jay, if you're listening, we'd love to get you off. Oh, get off the pod.
Get him off the pod. Hashtag.
Okay. Okay. Wow, we've derailed this podcast and it is like 6 minutes in. We once heard from a wise person uh, named PK. We were talking to PK a couple weeks ago, and we asked him the question, defense or offense, which wins games? And he very wisely put it, defense wins games, offense loses games. And I think Jay and I were pretty quick to agree. And obviously, like you're gonna agree with PK, but like I think that was a pretty good way to put it. Jay, would you like to have the floor?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think it's a little bit minimalist to say that the Strike's offensive strategy is huck and pray. I think it's more like
Yeah,
That's
that
like Robin Fennig's like handling style is like, hey, get deep because guess what? I'm getting it to you. And I know like Fennig has been a big part of our offensive, the offensive line of the Strike. Um, but I know what you were trying to say. Like that's what we're used to seeing, and we didn't see a lot of that yesterday.
yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, I do think we got to trust the guy who's representing USA at U24, right? Um, I did really agree with that because I guess that's kind of the point I was always trying to make is that a good offense, if you have a good offense, you're not going to lose the game because it takes an offense to lose you the game, you know? So, yeah, well, their defenses might have secured them those wins. Their offense didn't give up the game. So it's like a starting pitcher who gives up 10 runs. He's going to take the loss.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I think with the strike specifically for me, it's like because again, now that they've won so many games in so many different ways, like it's hard to say what has been winning them games this year because last year it was very clear for like the Empire, for example. Like the reason they win is it's very clear every time their offense is crazy. But with the strike now, it's like, well, they won because of their defense, and they won because of their offense, and they won because of their playmaking abilities on both sides of the disc. Like, I think it's unfair to say that one line or the other wins games, especially when Nariah yesterday said it really well. Like, it's a system. It's a whole like community driven effort. I guess team driven. The word is right there. Um, and so I think like saying defense wins games or offense wins games doesn't really do it justice. I think the team is just positioned to win.
That's true. Definitely thinking of it like that binary is doing it a disservice, and like the nature of Ultimate and the nature of the Strikes game this year is to be flexible, to adjust on the fly, and to think quickly, like make decisions in a moment's notice. And like I think a really great example of a player who's doing that well on the Strike this year is Sarah Mextroth. Like we were just kind of keeping notes on our own phones and stuff during the game, and we've seen it time and time again just throughout her career and throughout the season. But yesterday was a perfect example of how she had, I don't remember exactly how many blocks. She had one or two blocks, and then I think two or three assists, two or three goals. Like she had a pretty even spread of stats, is I guess what I'm trying to say, throughout the entire game. It's like she was making this impact every single way she could, and like she is just like talented enough to be able to do that. And again, I think that just really signifies like that it represents how the Strike have been working this year as a unit, and that's just one like case study of how they're doing that well.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of goes back to what Daniel Byers said on the podcast when we got her on just a little bit ago. That she said that, like the team chemistry is really good. That she mentioned playing with Robin. It's like if Robin thinks I can win, then I know I can win. It's all this. We think we think we're good enough to win. We know we're good enough to win, so we're going to go out there and win. They have the talent, they have the skill, but more importantly, they have that team chemistry. They all believe in each other. They all. I mean, there's not one player on the Strike who you can say, "Oh, this player's doing the best in the team this year." They're all putting in a ton of work, and they're all doing everything to get the disc downfield, to get the blocks, and to get the break points in those crucial moments. And to come back from being down 0-3, and actually it was tied at halftime 6-6 yesterday, but they were tied at halftime. Like they came back from a 3-point deficit in the same half, and then they ended up winning. So I think a big part of that is the team chemistry that Daniel Byers is talking to us about.
Yeah, I mean it's unselfish ultimate. It's like uh I was watching a documentary about Doc Rivers, who's this great basketball coach for those who don't know. He coached the 2008 Celtics, who eventually won their championship. And yeah, he was basically talking about how to play basketball, to play a team sport, like it's not about you hitting that three if you have a sure two-pointer down there, right? You can maybe get this 3-point where you can get that two-pointer, but you have to pass that ball, right? Like it's the same idea of you give up yourself for the team, and in return the team will give up itself for you, right? Like I mean it's kind of the classic, just like you're a part of a community, you're a part of a team. Like it feels very obvious, but like to put into to practice and to actually see it work is kind of rare. But I think the Strike they figured it out. They cracked the code. And again, like I think we talked about this last time or a couple weeks ago, but like even if they don't go undefeated, even if they don't win a championship, like regardless of the outcome of the season, to see them game by game, winning each game in a different fashion, having a different player every game stand out and get their chance to shine is just incredible. Like it's been inspiring, I guess. Like they need to make a documentary about the 2023 Minnesota Strike.
Yes, sir. I think the Wind Chill Talk guys should get on that. Are we gonna make a documentary, guys? Should we do
Uh,
it?
no. Who's got the time for that right now? Of us
No.
three, who has time?
Yeah, I've got time. No, I think the other thing too that we don't talk about enough on the podcast is that it is fun to watch them play. Because there's some teams where you watch them and it's just like kind of routine, like disc movement. Like they're running around, but it's not like exciting gameplay. With the Strike, it's like every single play, every single throw, they're like so much fun. I don't know. mean, not every single throw. That's a little bit exaggerating. Swing passes are kind of lame to watch, but I just like it's such an electric team, pun intended. And I think like just watching like them interact on the sidelines and every single point, the whole sideline gets off to cheer on whoever just scored. Like everyone runs out there. There's a lot of high fives, a lot of celebrating, bringing each other up. And it kind of plays into that team idea where like not only do you have to trust the other people on your team, you have to be able to support them. Like they have to know that they can rely on you. And so I think we've seen this team really turn into like a family of sorts.
Yeah, I do not disagree with that. Jay, were you gonna say something?
No, no.
Oh, okay. You unmuted. Um, yeah, I have enjoyed watching the strike. I'm gonna miss them not being able to watch them at home anymore. But definitely are gonna be streaming them. They have their next game on June 2nd, in Milwaukee, or right? Or it's against, oh boy. Oh, it's at Brees Stevens Field, actually, against Milwaukee. So that is where they're playing next, and that's their last game of the year. So definitely excited to see the outcome of that game and where they go from here. Like,
How do they approach this last game, do you think? Like, if you're the strike head coach, like, what do you do?
And I think this
For-
kind of goes back to what the post-game interview we had with Robin Fennig in the first home game with the strike, where she said like that first half, I mean that first quarter, what there was 1 point in the whole quarter or something like that, like extremely low scoring. And then the start of the second half, like both teams came out and they scored like I don't know, like quadruple the number of points in one quarter than they had the whole game up to that point. What Robin was saying was like we really found out like so this strategy wasn't working. We needed to be like seeing these types of cuts. We needed to be playing this way in the wind. We needed to utilize this other strategy that we already had prepared. We just weren't going into the game knowing, oh, this is the pieces we're going to be using. It was more we
Right.
into the game trying to pull off this strategy, and we realized no, we need to use this one. And I think what the strike have done throughout the rest of the season really well is gone into the game knowing what strategy to implement right away. And I think we didn't see that at yesterday's game, and that's why they came back really strong in that, the second quarter and the third quarter. They got their strategy, they know what they were trying to go for.
Mhm.
I think that's what the strike have been really good at.
Yeah. I will say, shout out all the coaching staff for the strike and all the players for like being able to adapt like that. Cause it's not hard to every game come out and do, and like you said, utilize the different strengths. And it kind of plays into the idea that like it really is a team effort because there are so many different strengths on this team. And yeah, using a different one every game or even every quarter, like, and just finding different ways to attack has been such like pivotal to their success that honestly, again, I think the best word for this team is dynamic. Like they really are just dynamic.
yeah, well, and yeah, like Jay said, like them being able to adapt quarter to quarter, like, and how that initial strategy or like their offense wasn't quite working, so then they were able to change something, maybe not necessarily in their strategy, but like, yeah, their approach was different. Their defense supported where they needed to support. Offense was then able to, yeah, kind of readjust as necessary and pull off a win. So I think, yeah, they've been very adaptable. They're able to pivot quickly and necessarily, and they're 5-0. That is sweet.
Yeah, even if they don't win that game 6, 5-1 is still an incredibly good record. And
Yeah.
I believe they're going to win game 6. So like 6-0 is an even better record. So go strike, good chat.
Good job. The other
Joe
undefeated.
was
Oh,
muted.
okay. The other undefeated Minnesota Ultimate team, of course, the Minnesota Wind Chill, who also had a huge game yesterday, like a big win that, as Kane described it, I'm totally taking your words, was a statement win. Like 26-12, not even close. What?
All right. So after yesterday's game, how do you guys think the standings in the Central Division are going to look towards the end of the season? Because, like, I'm not saying Philly's out, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh's out of it. I think they do still have a solid team. Like going into the season, they have a team that wants to succeed, and they said it at the beginning themselves and like the player chatter articles and stuff that came out. But Pittsburgh wants to win, and I think now that they did lose to us in such a bad way, I think they kind of lit the fire under their butt a little bit. So I don't want to count Pittsburgh out yet.
I mean, it'll be
But
interesting to see how Pittsburgh does against like Indy, for example. And yeah,
right,
like not necessarily the final score. Like honestly, I think they would lose against Indy. But like, yeah, if it's a competitive game, if it's close, right, then maybe they have a shot. But yeah, like it's going to be a pretty competitive Central Division anyway. So
and so I think I'm a little more confident in the wind chill now. But I think next weekend, after we get a chance to play Chicago, I
yeah,
think we'll get a better idea of like kind of where the team stands and where the Central Division stands. Because again, it's been 2 games. We can't like
the
be
sample
like, oh, we're the best in
size.
the whole league. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I
You know,
think. Go ahead.
I just think that's a really weird thing. Central Division has played like so few games so far. I mean, like other than Alley Cats who have played four, but other teams played like two or one, I think.
I mean, yeah, Chicago
But
and
like,
Detroit, I think have both played one game.
yeah,
mhm.
and we're both of their second games, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, but like, I mean, is it the East Division who's had four, and then there's a couple of teams. Like, I think Salt Lake Shred are 5-0, and Seattle
Yeah.
Cascades are 0-5. So both of those teams have, half of their seasons under their belt
Right.
right now.
Right.
Yeah, that is a stark difference. Um, so yeah, I think the sample size, once we get more games under our belts, we'll be able to better determine.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't know. I think the team has the pieces it needs to succeed this year. And I feel like we're already seeing the team like settle into the roles that we're expecting them to. And it's really interesting to see that because it's only game 2. And there's a lot of like fresh faces, and the lines look a lot different this year on offense and defense. And it's just like you can tell the team has been putting in the work with these new pieces because after that first, 5 minutes of that first quarter of the first game, the team has had good like flow. And so any of the worries that I had at the beginning of the year of like, oh, what if the team doesn't really work well together? It's kind of out the window at this point. And now it's
Yeah,
just like, well, let's see what this team can do.
yeah, I feel like I think the chemistry was going to be a big concern, right? Like, not necessarily the talent. Like I think even with the loss of the people they had, I think the talent was still there, and I don't think that was going to be a concern. We've kind of talked about like we knew that Clayton would step up, and we knew Will Brandt existed, and then they got Jason Cheetah, so it was like okay, Jason Cheetah is filling that role. But right, that chemistry of like who was the leader on the field? How is that going to change the chemistry? Is someone going to be confident enough to be that leader? And yeah, how is the cutter like just chemistry, right? Like that's what to sum it up. Um, and yeah, that has not seemed to be a problem. People seem to be pretty much on the same page. They're cutting well. The handlers are working well together.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you were to tell me at the start of the season that the leader for goals would be Marco Dregny, and then tied for second would be Colin Berry, I would have looked at you and said, "Who?" You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I would have been like, "Oh, okay." Like that's and Colin Berry's a captain this year, like good, like and like clearly earned it, clearly deserves it. Clearly helping the team chemistry and like putting up big numbers. And then like for blocks, Tanner Barkis is the most blocks on the team as well. It's like you got these
Huh.
guys who like we didn't think of, we didn't know, we didn't think of, we weren't expecting to put up these big numbers. And I mean, the whole team is really stepping up and really showing us like, hey, we're gonna win.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
that is really interesting that like yeah, like you said, these players who you would not have expected, like the dark horses on the team almost. But I think the Chill have built a culture where again, very similar to Striker, like unselfish ultimate. Everyone's gonna get their chance, everyone plays their role, and people rarely are gonna step into those other roles. You're gonna stay within yours. Not from a selfish perspective of like I am a defensive cutter, so I'm not gonna handle, but like I know what I can do, and I'm gonna leave it to the experts who can do that, do the other stuff that I can't do, and it works really well.
I'm feeling pretty good about this team this year. I don't
Yeah.
just say that every year. It's
Oh,
every year.
no, and
Yeah,
I
what's
know
up?
we talked about this. I talked about this in one of the articles I did about stopping last year's mistakes and everything. Marco Dregny was mentioned in that article, and like having like a real ability to make a case in 2023. But another thing that article mentions is like going for these big plays, and like all these things that we try to do at the end of the quarter. That we're going to try and stop this. We're going to try and get this point and everything. But for me at least, I felt like Minnesota was going for the big plays on every play in yesterday's game. Um, I mean, they got two Callahans, so like that's those are pretty big plays.
Right.
Yeah. How did it take us this long to bring up that fun little tidbit that two Callahans
Two
scored?
Callahans.
Big
That's great.
Callahan.
As in the AUDL in general this year, I think we can expect bigger plays like that, like specifically on defense, because like we talked about at the beginning of the year, there's gonna be a lot more emphasis on defense, especially with the pull rule. And so I think Minnesota showing that they're embracing that from the get-go is a really good sign because they're almost getting like not necessarily a step up on other teams, but for the teams that don't adapt right away, we can leave them in the dust. Like if Pittsburgh didn't adapt, and I don't really think they did on defense. I think because Minnesota is attacking so early on in the season, it's going to pay off big time and end the season.
But I think this weekend will be a real test because again, for me, it's the two road games that's going to be the big question mark.
Right.
I think personally, if I was Feldman, I would play my hardest on Saturday. I would get I'd try to get another big win. Because the last thing I would want would be, I mean, not to bash in Detroit, would be to lose to Detroit, especially the day before I'm going to play Chicago. I mean, Detroit's lost either 63 or 64 games in a row. To lose to Detroit would be a huge momentum stop for the Wind Chill. And I think that they can't have that, especially going to Chicago. And it would honestly be better to go 1-1 on the weekend, especially considering Chicago already has a loss, than to go 0-1 against Detroit and then, question yourself the whole time you're playing your division rival. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Like use the confidence boost almost. Like, yeah.
Right. Assure yourself the win and then take that into Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on both those games just to see who they play, how they play, if they get any more Callahans, because they're on pace for something like what 20 now. The team is.
Yes, sir.
I think
So
technically speaking, they're on pace for because they've gotten
They've
two
played
so
two
far, right?
games. Yeah,
So they're on pace for one a game, technically.
yeah. So 12 Callahans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Shot
that's kind of crazy. We saw how many last year total
I think
for
one.
the Wind Chill, just the one.
yeah,
We got two in the one game.
It
yeah.
was
I mean, the
tough.
one was
It was
the really really nice hand block into a fantastic catch.
yeah.
The other one was just who
Bergmeier.
Bergmeier caught the second one.
Hmm.
I mean, that was just like a tip, just basket catch for him. He was right there for it too. I mean, watching it, it almost looked like he didn't have to move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He said that in his interview too. He was like, "Oh, it kind of fell into my lap," but like, still, you got the
You'll
Callahan.
you'll take the stat, right? Like
Wait, in what interview, Jeff?
In the post game interview. We'll throw those post game interviews at the end of this podcast, so you can stick around. You can watch the Nariah interview after the strike game, and then the Bret Bergmeier interview after the Wind Chill game. Stick around for those after the pod. But yeah, all right. Anything else, guys?
I want to talk about something that's not going to be on the stats. Um, and that was Jason Cheetah absolutely destroying. I don't even know who it was, but I mean, he should have stayed on the ground. That was brutal. I mean, like,
he hit the ground hard too. Like I watched the replay, he flopped. Like I felt it in my chest.
I'm just glad Cheetah didn't throw that. Because if he did, that would have been the block. That would have been a highlight block. That would have been an ESPN top 10. That
Right.
would have been against the Wind Chill. So I'm really glad he didn't throw it there.
Now I almost wonder if Cheetah didn't throw it because he did that.
I feel like it was a pump fake for like a deliberate pump fake.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's what Cheetah was going through in his head. He's like, I know that he doesn't see that guy. So we're this close to the end zone if it goes. So because he very quickly just took the dump pass like right afterwards. So, but I mean, that was brutal. I wish there was a stat for that because
it was
that was
demoralizing.
brutal.
Yeah.
I would have stayed on the ground.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That's on our Twitter and stuff. Go check that out. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, two big Minnesota wins. Minnesota Frisbee is just so fun to watch, especially this year. So definitely hope you guys keep following us on all of our socials, YouTube for our podcast, Twitter, Instagram for all the updates, and of course subscribe for free on our website, windchilltalk.com. We do regular emails and stuff and all of the fun exclusive content behind the scenes and all that too. So definitely love to have you on our list. And just want to say that this episode is presented by the R1P1 network, doing some great work within the sports realm, doing the sports creative agency artwork and thumbnails, all that great stuff. So very appreciative of them. And again, thanks for listening. Stay chilly and ka-chow.
What's up, guys? I'm Kane with Wind Chill Talk, here with Nariah after the strike win. Nariah's got to ask, started off pretty rough. It was a 3-0 start to the game. What did the team do to come back from that?
Well, as we know, the game's not over until it's over. So really it's just playing back into our system. I think that it was a little bit windy, and I was saying that we're not used to playing in nice weather. Today's one of the first days we actually got to play in good weather, not too windy. So I think just like readjusting, trusting each other, and like trusting our game.
Absolutely, yeah. So the handlers have been a big part of the team's success this year. You guys are undefeated now, and a big part of that is just how good the handler movement has been up and down field. How have the handlers approached the season this year to make that success?
Oh, you're asking a cutter here. A lot of it's chemistry, right? Like all of us play on different club teams. We do all different kinds of things, and I think like finding those little pockets of people that are used to playing with each other and really trusting into the system really helps. Like as a cutter myself, knowing where the handlers are going to be for me on a reset and whatnot is really helpful. So really just buying into the system.
That's great. Awesome. Can I get a ka-chow for the camera?
Yeah. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hi, this is Jeff from Wind Chill Talk here at Bret Bergmeier. Bret, you had a huge Callahan. Was it your first Callahan of your career?
First Callahan with the Wind Chill, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's it feel?
Feels great. You know, it kind of landed in my lap, so got a little lucky there. It wasn't as good as Dylan and Abe's, but you know, Callahan's Callahan.
Exactly. It's all scored the same, right?
So, yes, sir.
What was working well with the team tonight? You know, after a closer game against Indy, more compelling win tonight. What was working well for the team tonight?
I mean, everyone always says it, but like energy, right? Kind of had a lax warm up, unfortunately. Then we came out, put the pedal down. I think everyone was pretty dialed in on their matchup. Sometimes we get caught helping each other out too much, or eyes all over the field. I think everyone was dialed in, so it was awesome.
So with the new poll with the new poll rule going on, you know, the polls have been crazy, and it gets you set in the end zone right away.
Yeah.
How has that affected the team's strategy and like the defensive approach?
I mean, polls have been big. I mean, you know, since last years before, right? But this advantage gives us extra time to get down the field, and if we can stop their momentum, make them swing the disc side to side. And so I think to answer your question as far as the focus goes is hyper focus on getting down early and stopping those first one or two cuts, you know, pinning them as far back as we can, which is what we did today. So it worked well.
Awesome. Yeah. Definitely. Well, which are on the road next weekend, so we'll see you back at home in a couple weeks.
Yes, sir.
We're going to stay chilly?
Oh, yeah. Stay chilly.
Awesome.
What's up, guys? It's Kane with Wind Chill Talk. I'm here before the Minnesota Wind Chill game. My man Chili here. Chili looking pretty fresh. How do we feel about the revitalized look this year? Absolutely, yeah. So first home game. Are you excited to be back in front of the crowd? You got any big cheers you want to share with us before the game? All right, haven't seen that one before. Pretty excited for this season. All right, can I get a let's go chill? All right, do me a favor, hit the gritty. All right, folks, we are back at Seafoam Stadium. Chili's here. Everyone's ready to have a great season.